Hey! Hey! Well, let me get this phone situated in a way that maybe I can not have to hold it. This is going to be annoying. Hey, there we go. Hey! Huck here. And I am very sorry that it has been like a month since I've posted a video. So let me just briefly explain what's been going on with old Huck here. You know, I don't seem to get the ability to go 2 or 3 days without having some ailment or another. It just drives me crazy. And, you know, if my breathing is feeling good, which, you know, for the most part I've been okay with, then it's something else. And for about 3 weeks now, I was having a serious problem with my throat. It was, I guess they call it thrush. And I had this before, although it's been a while. And the trouble with this thrush, it's some kind of like a fungal infection or something in the back of your throat or the back of your mouth or whatever. And at any rate, I didn't get it real bad, but I got it. And I guess it's pretty common with people that either have a, you know, extensive use of antibiotics or, you know, certain types of steroid inhalers that I and other people that have, you know, certain lung conditions have to use. Like I use this Symbicort. It's got a steroid in it, and you know, and they warn you that this is one of the side effects. And so I try to gargle after every use of the steroid, but at any rate, so I got that, and the problem with that was that about once or twice a minute, you feel like you got to clear your throat. It's real hard to like string more than 2 or 3 sentences together without, you know, kind of coughing, you know, really annoying. I finally got over that. It took a while. It took more than one bottle of this treatment stuff they give you. You got to gargle with this stuff called nystatin or whatever it is. Nasty stuff. And then they tell you you're supposed to gargle with like a thimbleful. You know, I mean, not enough to, you can't like, how do I gargle with that, you know? And yet it's so nasty. You can't keep it in your mouth. They want you to keep it in your mouth and swish it around for as long as possible. Well, for me, you know, 30 seconds is about my limit before I want to gag and I have to spit it out. At any rate, so I went through a whole bottle. It still wasn't completely gone, so I had to use about another half of it. I had to refill the prescription, and it took about 3 weeks to get rid of it, all in all. About a day or two after that was gone, though, then I got you know, a year ago I didn't even know what this stuff was. Never had it before. But now this is like the 3rd time I've got a case of cellulitis. And fortunately, this time it wasn't quite as bad. I caught it early. I knew right away what it was. So within, you know, a day and a half or 2 days, I was in to see the doctor. Again, I'm taking some antibiotics for it. And it hasn't spread. At one point, it started up here, you know, like around my bicep here area. And it started spreading to the point where my upper forearm was starting to get swollen. It was all real itchy and red. And now it's just a little area like pretty much where it started is about all that is really bothering around my bicep area. And at any rate, so I've got another week of antibiotics here to take, and taking 2 different antibiotics for it. But at any rate, that's how old Huck is doing. Now, on the political front, I had been meaning to do some videos here during this long layover, but so much has been happening. It looks like the Mueller probe is coming to some, you know, is finally finishing off some rather prominent figures in the case. Now, I don't know if he's nearing a conclusion of everything. Signs seem to be indicating that he is close to maybe doing something with Donald Trump, something maybe with, Donald Trump Jr., maybe something with this Paul Erickson dude who was an associate or friend or, I don't know, companion with this Russian girl who's being held as a as a foreign agent. And also, obviously, it looks like Mueller is narrowing his focus on Roger Stone and any of his associates, including this guy Corsi. So now, as far as Donald Trump himself, we can only speculate. It does look like by now he's had plenty of time to look over all of the, all of the financial picture that Trump's businesses have, all the connections to Russia and the Saudis, all of the obstruction of justice, occurrences that have occurred really since the investigation was first announced. So whether or not, Mueller is ready to pull the trigger on any of that, or maybe already has secretly, it's hard to tell. Hard to tell. So we're all going to have to continue to watch that. Because news really could drop at any moment, on any day, on that, and probably will. Will probably be a series of big news events coming out of the Mueller probe, one way or the other, involving any number of people, Michael Flynn being the most recent one. And like I said, I'm going to probably try to do a video here maybe later in the week about Michael Flynn in particular. Of all of these shady characters, him and I'd say Roger Stone are maybe the shadiest of them all, at least from my perspective. What I was, I got a really bad taste in my mouth from the, the first few things we had learned about Michael Flynn and his son. So to see, the fact that the Mueller recommendation is to go very easy on this guy because supposedly he has cooperated to such an extent, I must admit is a little bit surprising. And I'm not quite sure how to take it, because if there's anybody I really wanted to kind of see behind bars for a while, I guess he was one of them. But, I guess I'm eager to find out exactly to what extent he really did cooperate. And, it's a fascinating story if we ever hear what exactly that is. Did he wear a wire? Exactly to what extent did he cooperate? And what did we learn from that? Apparently, he cooperated in a number of investigations, not just one or two. And as I think Rachel Maddow had suggested in her program the other night, or maybe it was last night, there's nobody caught up in all of this who Donald Trump has stood up for greater than Michael Flynn. So what Flynn must know, what danger he must pose to Trump, must be significant. At least I think that's the speculation. So anyway, it'd be fascinating to find out exactly what that cooperation entailed, and what knowledge was gained, what evidence was produced from that, and how that will affect, what ultimately happens to Donald Trump or any of these other people. The other topic of the news, it's really discouraging and really disturbing. And I've tried to give it a little bit of thought here last couple of days, and I still don't have a real solution for this. And that is what we've been seeing going on, particularly in Wisconsin, but I guess to a lesser extent we've been seeing it in Michigan, we've been seeing it in North Carolina, and that's that these three particular states have so gerrymandered their own state legislatures that no matter how prominently this past election voters went out and voted Democrat, by maybe a margin of 10 points or more, while they weren't able to hold on to maybe Republicans weren't able to hold on to their their state offices like governor or attorney general or secretary of state or whatever the case might be, they were most definitely still able to hold on to their legislative seats, their state representatives and their state senates, basically because they've got these districts so gerrymandered that I think in Wisconsin it's something ridiculous. Republicans hold like 65% of the legislative seats, and yet they were outvoted. I mean, Democrats won by like a margin of like 9 or 10 points, and yet they still are holding a margin of like 64 to 36 or something crazy, ridiculous. And so what the legislature is doing before their Republican governor is out the door here is they are using this remaining lame duck time in order to limit the powers of the newly arriving Democratic governor and attorney general. One of the things apparently that was at issue in the election in Wisconsin, of course, was this whole idea of the Affordable Care Act. And, Wisconsin's legislature and Governor Walker were adamantly opposed to it. They were attempting to join these other states in challenging it before the Supreme Court in a court challenge on its constitutionality. And one of the reasons, one of the big issues in Wisconsin in this election for governor and attorney general was whether or not Wisconsinites wanted to see the Affordable Care Act overturned, and apparently they didn't. They liked it very much. In fact, they would like to see it expanded in Wisconsin, and yet this legislature, speaking for really a minority of the voters in Wisconsin, are taking steps to no longer allow the Attorney General to select a Solicitor General, and basically have to come to the state legislature, who will now have the power to decide what cases they will and will not challenge in the in the courts, basically stripping the Attorney General of those kind of powers, and similarly stripping the governor of certain powers. Michigan is stripping. I guess they're undermining a couple of the minimum wage increase, and at any rate. So these three states are basically undermining democracy itself, I think, by using a minority. It just goes to show you how undemocratic this gerrymandering, extreme gerrymandering, has become, and how it makes a mockery of elections, for that matter. Makes when people are voting for change, and they get that change, or at least they get the people they think that are promoting that change, that want to implement that change, and yet because of gerrymandered districts, their legislature, who really only represents a minority, but ruthlessly hold on to power because of their gerrymandering, basically deny the voters their will. And I don't know. What do you do in that situation? Is it pitchfork time? I don't know. Maybe they think that it's Republicans that have all the guns, so they're not worried. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I really don't know the answer, and I'm hoping maybe that you guys can come up with some suggestions. I'm open to some ideas. I could desperately use some hope on that front. Because the truth is, I mean, this is probably something that's going to spread. More and more Republican states are going to probably try doing this thing, just like they spread every other bad idea. If one Republican state does something drastically about, abortions, sooner or later the other Republican states follow suit. So I have a feeling that, this kind of limiting what incoming Democratic governors and attorney generals can do is a strategy that's going to pick up steam. I think North Carolina actually started the ball rolling on this, and Wisconsin is now running with it. And I think Michigan is starting to pick up steam on this as well. And like I said, it's only a matter of time before other states start doing it as well. So at any rate, on that depressing note, I'm going to call it a day. And again, I apologize for being gone for, a month. I missed you probably more than you missed me. So I hope I can get some more videos up a lot more quickly in succession than you've had to wait recently. Still like to do a video here in the coming weeks about for the 2020 race and who looks like they might be in. I mean, the field is going to be very crowded among Democrats, but I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't a couple of Republicans that decide to challenge Trump if he's still around. So we'll get to that too. But anyway, I thank you for watching. I'm going to let you go now. Try to get a video done in less than 20 minutes today. How's that? Hey, thanks again for watching. I'll see you again real soon.